This video is an overview of how to use CADMapper data and SketchUp to do a sun study and a sun shading study of a site in Wellington. If we load SketchUp at the SketchUp free option from the web, we end up with an interface that looks a lot like this. We're going to create something new, but first we need to make sure that we've actually set it to be decimal and meters, otherwise things are going to go wrong. We need initially to get rid of tie. SketchUp are famous for putting a different character in each new version of their software to give you an idea of scale. We don't need tie. What we do need to do is go up here to this little options in the three bars for the menu in the top left hand corner of the screen and add a location. Now in Google Maps I have saved the various locations in a list so I know where they all are. I'm going to load Midland Park, so this area. So in SketchUp I'm going to enter into the search bar. Hopefully it can find Midland Park. We'll see whether we need to locate it. We certainly don't want Midland Park in the United States, so we'll try something a little more specific. Midland Park, Wellington, New Zealand. There it is in the middle of our screen. What we're being asked to do on the right hand side here is select a region. I certainly don't need all of that part of the screen, so I'm going to reduce myself down to just that area around Midland Park and import it into my model. Now I actually have a map of Midland Park. I can, on the left hand side here, find the measuring tape and start to get some measurements of the park. We can measure this, it's actually dimensioned, it's also located in space. So if we go over to the right hand side and select the display, we can scroll down here. We should be in those units, but we can turn the shadows on and off and pick shadow time. If we had 3 dimensions we'd be able to see it, for date and time that are located in Wellington already for us. But we don't have any geometry. For that we go to the CADMapper option. CADMapper.com is where we start. We'll need probably to create a location, a user ID, and now we're going to actually search for Midland Park within CADMapper. And again it's gone to Midland Park somewhere in the US, so we'll go Midland Park, Wellington, and there we are, Midland Park, Wellington, New Zealand. Again, we're centered on Midland Park. It's way too big at the moment. We're going to bring this down. I'm zooming in by scrolling the mouse button. Get this around about the same. We have now zoomed into the area of Wellington that contains the geometry if we're lucky. If we're lucky is because although CADMapper advertises itself as having the dimensions of the buildings, in reality, as you can perhaps see highlighted at the top of the screen, at the bottom of the screen, it only has some buildings at the right height. The rest you put in as a false height where you enter a number here. We might enter that number as 20 meters because we're downtown and we've got towers around us. It will also add in topography lines at contours up to 4 meters, as narrow as 4 meters apart. and you can enter road geometry as mesh surfaces, outlines, or otherwise of different widths. That's all we're going to do in terms of setting the numbers. We can export as a Rhino file or a SketchUp file. We're currently exporting SketchUp, so we're going to create a file. Now, that's the area again on the left, and what it's doing is creating on the right a three-dimensional representation of the buildings. Now this actually looks like a lot of these buildings around are actually the right shape and size. So for Midland Park at least, we're looking okay in terms of actual geometry rather than that estimated 20 meters that we entered. Now if I click download, it's going to put a file which we'll call Midland Park on top of its standard naming, so I know what I'm looking for. Close that, go back to SketchUp, and before I go any further, I'm actually going to open up the folder where I just saved that file. It's there. This should work in both a Mac and a PC. We have something else to do first. We're going to right click that file and we're going to go to Properties, and we're going to say yes, we trust it by clicking Unblock. Then I can go into here, open it with Windows Explorer, and it will open. Open the folder that's in there, and there's the SketchUp file that I want to copy into my directory. Now back in SketchUp, I can go to Import, I'll get that again, Import from my device. I could drag and drop it, or I could go to my 2021 folder, find the most recent file, so I'm looking down the folder. I was looking for it up here when in fact it's down here. I'm looking for the file that I have saved as Midland Park SketchUp file. I'm opening it and I'm importing it as a component for the moment, and you might notice it's way up here relative to down here at 0, 0. I'm going to click the select button, select my component, and I'm going to press M for move and move it from there to the origin. Then I'm going to zoom in. You'll notice I have highlighted because I've selected it, but now on top of that map I also have some geometry. Now I've not quite got the building at the right level. Let's choose this building. I'm going to press M again, pick that endpoint and try to move it vertically on the blue axis until it's at the point of the surface where I've got the geometry vertically aligned with the map that I've already downloaded, just to make sure that I am in the right place. Now if we pick a view that is looking down on Midland Park, which is in this area, I should be able to change the time of the day for the shadows, or the time of the year for the shadows, and obtain a reasonable picture of what the sun would be like in the space of Midland Park, which is this area here. As you can see, I can fiddle about with this model forever, double clicking the component which groups all the buildings together, selecting individual buildings within it and dropping the paintbrush from the palette of colors here or other colors that I add to enhance the view. It's not necessary for this assignment, not something we want you to be doing. What is much more of interest is to actually start to look at the shadows. Typically we look at the shadows on the 21st of December, the time when the sun is highest in the sky, the 21st of June, the time when the sun is lowest in the sky, and the 21st of March or September, the time when it's halfway between those 2 points. We don't need to do March and September because the sun follows basically the same path across the sky. Typically then we might do 9 AM if we're just taking views and the whole site is in darkness because there's lots of buildings shading the site. 12 PM, midday, and the sun is starting to fill in this part of the site, and then possibly 3 PM when the sun is disappearing behind the other buildings on the other side of Lambton Quay, which is the street that curves through the middle here. We could also do, as I was saying before, 3 PM in the middle of summer, a whole different story. If we did 9 AM, again, 9 AM is a little early, but we can start to scroll through and pick times when, perhaps by midday, the whole of Midland Park is in the sun in the middle of summer. So we can start to take representative views and save them, produce them as tiny little vignettes, possibly 3 across a page for each season, to include in our report.